Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's Eva, by the way.
Ava, I knew that. I don't know why I said that. I'm like, I've
No
been
worries.
following for years, and I'm like, I'm a little
Yeah,
nervous. I'm gonna say I'm a little nervous because you're the first person I've had on my podcast that I've actually been in their space for a long time. So I'm like, it's kind of like the
yeah,
little
I
like
know.
star-studded, like
Yeah,
I'm
no
like, I just
worries.
love what you're creating. So my first
Thank you
question
so
is,
much.
in this moment right now, what's that thing that's lighting you up the most?
Whew. In tuning about that. I think there's a couple. Well, okay. Personally, honestly, it's my spiritual journey. Yeah, it's not business at the moment. I mean, it is like 20% business, 80% transformation. And I don't know if you've noticed this. I'm really curious your take on this, but I have seen so many shifts, especially since January. It's like it seems like we're in a some kind of spiritual washing machine, fast spinning power wash, but it's also like, you're in it and I went through COVID with a month ago, which was kind of weirdly good or wound up good. It was kind of part of the whole thing because it takes you down to the deepest, it takes you down to your Achilles heel. It takes you, it literally like it is so, it's not physically, it's like all fine, but it takes you down to your spiritual Achilles heel and you experience like the things you really don't want to experience, but then you surrender and you come out kind of empty and you're like, okay, well, this stuff in my life does no longer serve me. So that part has been really, really, really exciting because I think like my intuitive abilities have gone up. I can like the coaching gets so much better because all of a sudden I can see, yesterday I wrote, this is just, I always, I will be honest with you. I always told people I was not very intuitive. I was like, I'm not very intuitive. And yesterday, literally, I wrote down a whole story, like my past life that showed up for me, like scene after scene after scene after scene. I was like, wow, like the whole thing. So I think there's just so much going on beyond our understanding. And what really lights me up is like, we're starting to see how we have been so manipulated, but it's almost like I don't want to give it power away and say like, oh, it's somebody out there, but we have like our own traumas and our own stuff, and as well as saying yes to some of the ideas of the collective. For the longest time we were just going along, and now it's like everything is coming open, and it's just such an exciting journey. And there's also a lot of people who are going through this and who don't have the support. So the business thing that I get really excited is the opportunities for us as, the leaders in this world, as the healers, the kind of the awakeners, the morpheusis or morpheusai. It's the plural of that word.
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's the opportunity for us to not just kind of hide and do our spiritual work and that, like, yeah, we have done that for a long time, but also like really step up and lead and help our fellow humans, because you see this division, right? You see this like us versus them, and the sheeply versus the non-sheeply, and there's this whole thing going on, and you're like, well, aren't we supposed to be doing this together? Like, are we supposed to be, how are we supposed to be helping out one another? And this is where our industry comes in, and like, yeah, let's step up, let's share, let's be vulnerable, let's share experiences, let's talk about this, let's lead, right? So that's kind of that.
Yeah, I've seen that too. It is a very exciting time. I've stepped out of my shell of hiding because I
Mm.
was so structured in business, like I teach business. And now it's like, oh no, I teach podcasting for your soul. You get all these other like
Yeah.
deeper healing parts and finding
Yes.
yourself.
Yes, yes, yes. You have so many great episodes on the podcast. I was kind of going through, I'm like, this is really awesome. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Each of us kind of stepping up and leading and doing our own inner work, but also not staying hidden, going out.
And
So,
for being in your space, I see you doing that and I see you helping others up to this next level, because one of the things you taught me, which you may not have realized it, but like I've been in your space for a while, was that making money was okay because I could
yeah,
serve more. by making
Yeah.
more money. And
Yeah.
that was something that you taught me, that I remember specifically on this live event you were doing. I was like, however you said it to me, it like, oh my goodness, I can be a leader and create a bigger impact.
Yeah. Yeah. The money issue. Yeah. The money issue is really interesting in the spiritual space. There's almost like there's two programs that are running simultaneously, right? There's the guild program and there's the shame program. And the guild, there's sort of this side of entrepreneurship and being in the coaching space where, you know, we come into business, but we have all these wounds. We have what I call the sales wound, where it's like you put yourself out there and you finally, you're like, I'm aligned, I'm launching something, I have this program I'm going to put out there, and finally it's all aligned, it's a perfect price point, it's really great, and then you put it out there and it's like, people are like, that looks great, but nobody's really buying. And then we go into our shame space, we go into our wounded space. It's like, what does this mean? Am I really the real deal? Am I all that I'm really cracked up to be? What is this? And our worthiness gets questioned. And when there is lack of feedback, there's lack of validation from the outside world, right? And I'm talking to somebody, I'm not saying this to brag, but I have built 2 7-figure businesses, and it shows up for me because it's a wound. I'm actually just healing through this now, which is like, how did I not see this, right? How did I not see this? This is what the past life was about, and clearing that up. It's craziness, right? So there's the shame programming and needing that validation. It's a whole separation wound. There's like, if I don't have a proof that I am valid in what I do in terms of people and their money and how much they pay me is also plays into the equation, if that makes sense, right? Then I don't feel worthy. So that's the shame side of things, where we have to make money to prove ourselves something, right? So that's that piece that needs to be healed. And then there is your other piece where there's the shame piece about actually, there's the guilt piece actually of making the money, because there's a programming, right? Even the Course in Miracles says somewhere that, I think they had an entity break into the Course in Miracles, that therapists shouldn't charge for their services. I'm like, no, right? So you're like that, right? So money is just an energy. It's a thing. When we attach it to our identity, then that's when it becomes toxic, right? And there's so much to heal around money. Like, for example, I'll share like a little bit about my story. I think you might have heard me say that, so I don't want to bore you to tears here, but you know, when I'm a single mom, right? And I found out I was going to be a single mom really early on in my pregnancy, about 4 days after I found out I was pregnant. And for me, it was a season of panic, because on my entire business was traveling based, going to different cities, going to different places, doing presentation, and I couldn't even get behind the wheel and go to places because I was like, I'm so sick, I'm so nauseous, I'm so tired, I'm so depressed, I'm so in such a state of apathy and hormonal whatever, and you know, traumatized by what just happened, right? Because Lexi's biological father literally fled and blocked me on everything, and I never heard from him since that day, right? So it was this place of just really, it was traumatic. And I was like, oh my gosh, if this person doesn't support me as a single parent who will, and then I used money. I literally built $1 million revenue practice within 15 months, right? Crashed and burned after. Not important, but, you know, went through this crazy growth journey. And part of it is to prove that it's possible. It's like, yeah, you know, it's like, I get excited proving the impossible possible. That's fine. But part of it was to never have to rely on help again. You know, it was never to have to rely on other people again because they have let me down. And that's also a past life trauma. Those are the woundings that showed up in this life various times, but it's ancient. We have been doing these things over and over and over. So when it comes to business, we have these woundings, and you're dealing with a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs, right? And the chances are they, like a lot of us might have, we have the same wounds. we have been the witches on the stick, right? We have been the ones who have been stoned to death. We have been the ones who have led before and healed before. And now we have the visibility, like we can't, express ourselves, or we have such a fear of judgment and we don't know why. We can't figure out why. Well, just all this childhood stuff got healed, but then it's like, nothing is happening, right? It's like, I still feel that way. And then it comes to closing sales. We're like, oh my God, this is like, like so much comes up. And then you work with clients and you try to make everybody happy. You're really afraid they're going to say something about you or think something about you. You're not going to make them happy enough. And you have this one person in the room, and whatever you say, they're going to be like, I've done this before, I've heard this before. Like there's just so much. I'm just kind of starting to see into there's this like these 5 core wounds that I think as entrepreneurs we really have to go deep. But it's like people think they've healed them, but they go into the surface level stuff. I release my anger. Well, that anger was just protect you there from something else, right? You're like, I released my shame. Well, that's not enough, right? There's the separation. There's this shame only exists because you believe you're separate from another. There's no other reason for shame to exist because you're comparing yourself to another and you wound up as not good enough. So there's just so much. And I'm just sharing like this personal stuff with you because, it's like, I don't even have all of this result, I'm just walking the path and we're walking the path together and we're doing this together as a community and, hoping for the best.
Right. But I think that's what makes you, for me, magnetic, is that you share the trenches. It's not always here's the highlight reel.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's what yeah. I think this is really important because when you go into business as a spiritual entrepreneur, you got to decide, and this is where wounding that's triggered too. You got to decide, do I want to look good or do I want to transform people's lives? And you can run your business from 2 different angles. One is for your own personal gain, right? To prove, and you're going to be helping people and you do the client work, but guess what? The marketing is part of that too. It's part of your mission. It has to have the same exact frequency than your client work. Does that make sense? Like people treat marketing differently. They when they're with them clients, they're all about their clients. They love them. They will go overboard for them and they love them to death, but then they put the marketing head on and it's all manipulation, right? Or if it's not like conscious manipulation, it's like, oh, I have to say all these things and I have to speak to those pain points and I have to check these boxes and I have to put the perfect copy together and I have to do it in a perfect way that is, going to trick people into working with me. Then I'm going to transform. Like, guess what? Like 98% of the people who are following you, who are reading your stuff, who are reading your blogs, the people like you who come to my world, and you and I have not worked together or yet. We just haven't, right? But it's like, if I go into my marketing, I'm just going to trick you into something, you're not going to be tricked. 98% chance you're not going to be tricked anyway. But now I actually missed out on fulfilling my mission in the world. And part of that mission, right, is like, be used by the divine with your marketing included, right? Don't worry about it. People like, and my mentors told me, well, Eva, you're oversharing. Like, this is not what's going to bring you business. And I'm like, okay, I'm willing to take that risk. I'm willing to do that because I think, especially as spiritual entrepreneurs, I'm more of a business coach, type of deal. I'm kind of like you in that phase that I'm kind of in between those 2 worlds, right? But, and I help with the strategic and the tactical, as well as the blind spot, because I can see it from different angles, right? But like the marketing component is just that's where the magic really is. And when we let go of sorry, I'm going to be like, it's bullshit programming of the coaching industry. And I have myself perpetuated that in the past to an extent because of my unconscious patterns. And because I didn't know that like you just go into it. Oh yeah. In order to get a client, you have to do. And you don't realize you are buying into the same nonsense. But when we commit to our business to being in service to the divine, right? And everything that we put out there can be perfectly and completely aligned. And this is what I've been teaching lately, which I call the resonance code, right? So you start sharing with your marketing or your live events or your virtual events, and you really start aligning with to your own truths, which is a buzzword to a lot of people, authenticity, your own truth. And but really, it's like you get a hit of inspiration, it goes over here. For me, it's like I have an inspiration. Do I want to type it or do I want to record it? What do I feel like? Okay, if I feel like recording it, it goes on my podcast. If I want to type it, it goes over here. It goes my personal Facebook profile, right? Because just that's where I feel home. I'm kind of old school that way. This is like TikTok, can't figure that out, right? But it's like you start doing that and people start listening. And what soul resonance means is like we don't go out there and try to figure out, okay, what's my target market? How can I speak to them, right? Because you're not going to, if you're doing this for them, if you're figuring out in your head, what do I say to make them say yes to me? You can't be in your spirit. You cannot be fully connected. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
You just got in your head. So this is the difference. Like when we're with clients, we allow ourselves to use our intuition, to use divine guidance, and we're there fully to support. We are full focus on them. Whether you're in a healing space or you're in consulting space, you create this etheric brain between you two, and you're doing the work together, right? It's the same way with marketing. But what people do is like they cut off their heart and put their head on. I'm like, no, keep the head cut off. Right? Keep the head cut off and give yourself permission. This is people like, well, I don't want to look like the one who doesn't have it figured out, because like I should have it all figured out because I'm the leader, I'm the coach. Right? But that's the fakeness, right? That's the fakeness. Let people decide. Let them see if they resonate with you. Right? And then don't hold back when you have your masterpiece, you have your program, right? You have your creation. It's just like, yeah, like give it to them and let them decide, which is very, very difficult, right? Because we put our baby there and we don't know how people are going to react. I'm sorry, I'm talking so much. I got on a little bit.
Oh no, I'm all in for this tangent because this is exactly what I'm trying to create with this podcast. This is exactly the movement that I'm trying to make, is that I kind of believe that the coaching industry, the business coaching industry, turned into the diet industry. That it's so very, here's your thing. And it's like, fuck you. No, I'll do it my way.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And it's very interesting. I've been talking about formulas for a while. And I'm like the master of formulas, I can design formula in 5 minutes. Here's your formula, right? Because it's so interesting. My zone of genius is creating the systems and formulas. But then I'm like, once we believe that there is such a danger of it, because the minute you believe that formula is the only way it's going to work, and if you don't get the formula right, you are out, right? Because you like, yeah, it's like, it's not fun. And at some point your formula is going to stop working because, yeah. So there's really need to really tune in, to really stay authentic, to really trust ourselves. And there's another piece to it that is coming. People are told, okay, well, put yourself out there and do the things and then trust. And there's such danger in that. Have you ever been told like you should just trust that it's going to work out?
Daily.
Yeah. So here's the thing. We don't know how to trust. So what we do is kind of like put stuff out there. And if it doesn't work, it's like, see, that didn't work. Right. So I'm going to go back to the ego ways, and I'm going to do some of the old stuff that I know is kind of draining my soul. And that's still this whole like trust and see. It's pretty much like try and see and like fake trust, right? Like the whole thing is in the old paradigm. And what we need to learn is, instead of like this fake trusting, it's like, I'll share a story with you. Like I had a free event this Monday, the resonance code, and I was resisting it. I mean, by resisting it, I was like, I was just like, I don't want to do this. I don't even want to announce it. I didn't even announce it until like a week before. Typically I have like a 4-time lead period, and we have like tons of people registered. When we were like, we have events with like 1,800, 2,000 people registered or whatever. I was in such resistance. I was like, I don't want to do this. Maybe it's not aligned for me. Must be out of alignment. That's the best. Like when you start hearing yourself saying like, oh, it must be out of alignment, it's like, ooh, bullshit. There's something in there. There's something in there, something that needs to be worked out. Right. So there were some things to work out, but there was also this other piece when you really like my free event, that's my marketing, right? So when we allow ourselves to really, really, really think about the service, the love, what do I really, really want to give to these people? And then once I started diving in, right? And there was a little bit of back and forth when all my patterns and my ego driver gets involved with it. And it's like, yeah, but, but when you really, your marketing and your free events, and when you come back to how can I make this piece of work that I'm creating make the biggest difference, right? Then you shift out of overgiving, because giving too much information is never the answer. Then you shift out of, creating pressure for yourself to get results or get sales or whatever. And you truly go to, okay, I really like, you bring love into it. And you're like, okay, I'm going to really be present with these people. I'm really going to focus on the key things that I want them to take away. I want them freedom. I want freedom from failure for them. I want them to trust their bodies when they're making decisions. I want them to get a proof for themselves that actually making risky decisions is good for them, and start trusting that, because it is, right? Like the heart-based, like the craziest, wildest decision is always what brings us the goodies, right? It works that way, but we don't believe it. So, when I started tuning into that, I'm like, okay, I want them to get that. I want them to develop safety, like really feeling safe around money and making risks in their business. I really want them to, really start trusting, but like trusting their body, right? Trusting their intuition. So anyway, and so once that shifted, it was like, wow, it was just the most magical event. And it was like the best. I think like that was my best. Anyway, I was the happiest with it, because I felt like it was the most authentic piece of work that I put out there. And authentic, it is not that I wasn't authentic. I just wasn't, I was as authentic as I could be at the time. It's always layers, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
With the constant growing and changing and evolving. And that's one of the things that I find really beautiful. Like I mentioned like the other business coaches, but there's something like every single one of your events that I've been to, it's never, you do have the funnels, you do have the strategy, but I've never felt like it was a forced thing. I felt like it's always something there that's like, here's kind of like your Play-Doh, you mold it into what works for your soul.
I'm glad you felt that way, because I feel like looking back at my own stuff, I just kind of cringe, sometimes. And I'm like, oh my God. So you told me this is going to be aired in October. I'm like, I'm going to cringe at this by then, because I'm going to understand things that I don't now, so.
Yeah. And I appreciate that you're constantly evolving and you're constantly sharing those evolutions with your community. So if somebody's looking for a community like that, where can they find you?
Good question. Sovereign Entrepreneurs Unite group on Facebook. I'm going to message you the link to that. We have, we might, depends by when they jump in there, but we have some recordings of some of the events there, so they can always join there. And I have programs, so they can find me. I'm just under reconstruction right now, but they can find me on my website, and I will make sure I link everything that we have going on here, my podcast and things like that. So that's ivapaleckova.com.
And I'll make sure to get all your information in the show notes, because we all like the easy click and go.
Yeah.
make things super easy. So if someone were to walk away with just that one little mic drop, take to heart moment, what would you want them to keep with them?
Oh God, I don't know. There's so much. There's so much. I guess, when it comes to making decisions, you feel a yes in you for something. Like you feel a yes. Like there's just some crazy thing, but you have a lot of nervousness. Maybe you want to work with a coach, or maybe you want to invest into something, or maybe you want to move to Costa Rica, or maybe you want to do something crazy, or whatever it is. Well, number one, you got to figure out what the yes looks like for you, right? But it always, always, always works out. So if you're listening, if there's anybody who is listening to you right now and you have a decision to make and your brain is saying no, but your body and the nervous excitement is saying yes, and the brain says, well, I'm not ready, I'm not ready, I'm not ready, I have to do this and this and this and that, I will say, don't wait. Do not wait. Just do it. It's going to be the best thing. And oftentimes financial concerns get in the way. So the best thing you can do is look at your past decisions and how they turned out and how did you feel before you make them, and then look at the outcome. What you're going to find is that the decisions that brought the most abundance to you felt exactly like that. That's literally the spirits telling you go for it. So if you have a yes for your next venture, if you have a yes for some training you want to do, if you want to have a yes, for something, literally gotta do it. Do not wait. It's literally the spirit guiding you. If you base your life in creating safety and managing the situation around you, I can't tell you how many people are like, yeah, but my cat is getting married, our dog is just graduating, I can't now, I'll do this later, and I'm working through all my wounds, and I need to do this, and I need to heal myself first, and I gotta go work on my mindset, and when I'm ready I'll do that. I'm like, stop it. You're literally like, you're saying yes, you're saying no to your spirit, and you're saying yes to the head, and the head is kind of really stupid. I'm sorry to say that, it's very limited. Your head only knows what it's memorized and what it's learned from the collective. That's not the divinity, right? So we need to cut a head off, and we need to have the courage to start following these hints and following the craziest things, right? So anyway.